one that's on the sound level 45.7. You're at 1,801 feet, right? So that's give or take, 1,800 feet. And I think somebody earlier said that you're going to have to be at least, that the sound level is probably going to dictate versus the distance. If you go to 45 decibels, you're not going to be 1,500 feet. You're going to be further out, and that's kind of what shows you there.
Situation, you'd be 1,800 feet.
That's right, and so that's why it's good to have both your setback distance as well as your sound, because whatever's more, that's what's going to dictate how far back you can be. Again, if you want to get as you're getting into the sort of 35 range, you're going to be over a mile away, give or take.
Now, if you have a tower right up at the end of a ravine and you live at the other end of that ravine, is that topographical terrain going to amplify?
I'm going to turn to the noise guy now.
I can play noise guy only so long. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jay.
So the noise model assumes a certain amount of attenuation from the ground cover, vegetation, and so forth. Some of the noise is going to be absorbed by that material over the distance. So if that ravine was water, a hard surface, that would reflect the sound a little bit more than if it were crop.
Winter with ice and snow.
Snow and ice will reflect a little bit more as well.
So actually, this test, it could vary even then from winter to summer by quite a bit.
It will vary on a seasonal basis for sure.
What does this base on?
To take into account the fact that it's going to vary over time, we pick an average value that's representative of what you would see over the course of a year. And that value is it's a 0.5, which means it's not hard, it's not soft, it's exactly in between. And there's been a number of studies that have been done.
So it's an average.
But there's been studies that have been done to validate that assumption of 0.5 most accurately predicts what noise levels will actually be measured in the field after operation starts.
So, Jay, if I may for a second.
So, Mr. Chair, in addition to the 0.5 that Jay's talking about, this is that ground absorption factor. Even when you have snow and ice, that's still, you're going to have some absorption there. What you're really talking about is really hard surfaces like the water with that. But in addition to just using that 0.5 average ground factor, what he also uses is he adds +2 decibels as an uncertainty factor into the model. So it's not just the 0.5 and some of the other things he's got in there. They actually added an additional +2. That's just to make sure. And then there's other things like, let's say this is the home here, my computer's the home. And let's say you folks are all turbines and I'm a turbine too. Okay. The way the model works is that the wind's blowing from all directions at the same time, and the noise is coming from all the same direction, and that's the number that you're getting here. It's obviously an unrealistic scenario in that if the wind's blowing this way, you're going to get the noise from me, a bit of noise from the commissioners here, certainly from Luke and down there, they're not going to hear those ones because the wind's traveling that way carrying the noise. So the model is designed, as Jay was saying, there's been a lot of field tests done, and so that's why when I said I've reviewed the report, kind of what inputs he put in, we know that if you, like let's say that you had a complaint, I think this is part of the process and the protocol, and we've talked about this in the other counties as well, they're going to have to verify that they're within your ordinance, whether if you commit to the 45 and you put that in, or the 50, whatever the number is that they have to commit to, if there's a complaint, they're going to have to demonstrate that they're within your permit that you're issuing them. And if they don't, I think that's when Luke was talking about things like the penalties and that. If they can't demonstrate that through actual on-the-ground monitoring, if that's what has to happen, then they're going to have to curtail the turbines. They're going to have to turn them off at night. They're going to have to slow them down. There's a bunch of stuff that then costs them money. So the models are definitely designed such that we're over-predicting, because if you're wrong and you go back and you measure, it's costing the company a lot of money, and then the people who are doing the noise monitoring get in trouble.
Yeah, how about interest?
Absolutely, Commissioner. And so in that letter, again, dated June 8th that I sent you, and I'm just going to pull that up. I don't need to pull it up here, or I could, depending if you'd like, but I don't know that you have it in front of you now because I was sent it to you back in the ordinance side, but what I can tell you is that on the infrasound, there's no question the turbine's in infrasound. Just like the fan right here from the projectors, if you get a cyclical motion on something like that, your HVAC system, your meter, all of those are gonna emit infrasound. So just like the audible noise that we've been talking about, this DBA, is it enough to make people sick, cause sleep disturbance and the like? And for a while there, we weren't actually measuring infrasound around turbines, and you don't typically. It's not part of ordinances, we published in papers, and there's a lot of stuff in here that I sent you guys back in June, but I'm just gonna read from, somebody brought up a German study of walls and everything else, but I'm gonna read you, and again, this is what's on record with the commission, so I'm not giving you anything new here, although you might have to go back, but I just wanna make sure it's on record. So I quoted a German study, and the German study that I quoted was just released in 2016. It was done by a German state, so it was, the equivalent to as if the state of South Dakota commissioned the study. Okay, so it's done by the state themselves in Germany. It's in Fritten-Bodenberg. I'm gonna butcher that. I apologize for anybody with a German heritage or in the background. But what they did was they measured wind turbines and infrasound and low frequency noise at various distances from the turbines. Actually, if I may, okay, at the chair at your permission. Okay, so if I could get what I'll put up, again, this is on file with the commission, it's nothing new. And I'm happy to send this electronically again, just to verify that it was the same document, but what I'll do is when we get it up, I'll go to the top and I'll come back down.
Just for your information, though, this information is not going to be included
Right.
as part of
No,
the record.
agreed, and so I'm just saying that it has been previously filed, I don't wanna, that's the other reason I was bringing it up. So if, I can go back up to the top after, but you can see in the footer there, this is what I submitted to, the commission on June 8th, 2018. This is a graph from that German report that talks about the infrasound that they measured, okay? So when you look at here, infrasound is everything, this is 20 hertz, okay? And infrasound's everything to the left of that, okay? Infrasound's 20 hertz and less. Low frequency noise is 20 hertz to 200 hertz. And the DBA, or the audible sound that we're hearing, that goes down to about 16 or 12 hertz, or somewhere around here. What these lines are, okay, this is at 1,000 feet. It's at 300 meters, 1,000 feet from a wind turbine. And they've got the turbines running, and then they shut the turbines off. So with the turbines running, and we know that this pink band here is infrasound and low frequency noise. So you can see 75 or whatever. Remember, this is a different scale than your DBA, okay? But to give you the numbers, you kind of like, if we just follow the top line, this is infrasound measured from the turbine, top of the pink, okay? What this green line is that's the infrasound with the wind turbines shut off and the same wind speed. So this 10 meters per second is kind of when you get the maximum power output starts for turbines, or maximum sound output. You can see that the wind has the same amount of infrasound with the turbine off. Almost the same amount of low frequency noise, but then candidly there's a little bit of low frequency noise in here. For all of you that drove over in your cars tonight, that's the amount of infrasound and low frequency noise you're getting from driving in your car. This is your heating oil in your house, and there's other ones, and this is the perception threshold here. What we know is that the levels of infrasound to actually then start causing things like migraines, loss of cognitive function, it's messing you up pretty good. Where we know those effects start are somewhere around this 110 range. And again, remember that every 10 decibels is a doubling in sound in this. We're well below. The international standards, I don't have it here, typically follow kind of like this. So we're well below. Can I measure it? Sure I can. In fact, you can measure infrasound from wind turbines out to about 6 miles away. I can pick it up, but it's so low, or Jay can pick it up, I don't do that work, Jay does it. But you can pick it up, I can tell you that that's from a wind turbine, but it's so low, it's well below anything that causes health effects. And just if I came down here, this is the quote directly out of this report. Right here.
We're getting dangerously close.
Sure, okay, I can stop, yeah.
Going in excess of what he asked.
Okay, sure. But so, in conclusion on the infrasound, yes, we can measure it, but it's well below us a level that would cause concern.
staff have one?
No, I just do the questions for the findings of flooding, yeah.
Staff, would you ask the questions for the findings of fact for this motion?
Sure, and I'll hold this microphone forward. I just want to let you know it's not intended to stop the conversation in any way. If you hear something that you want to add to board members, or you have, it spurs a question in your mind, by all means, go ahead and do that. If I hear silence, I'm going to assume that that is my cue to move on to the next one, and that you feel that the question was satisfied. If you don't feel like something was satisfied, by all means discuss that, bring it up, what it might be, and again, if there's any questions, go ahead and do that. The first question is the board comfortable with the standard findings of fact adopted in the bylaws were addressed by this application? Remember, those were adopted at our earlier meeting this year.
For those of you, there are the standard findings. We adopted the comprehensive plan, we adopted the zoning ordinance, spent some time with the planning commission, done the public notices, we had testimony, support and opposition. We reviewed the proponents and testimony, satisfaction provisions have been made, applications are going to be placed regarding entrance and exit utility screening signs, required yards and general compatibility. When you adopted these standard findings and bylaws in January, the presumption is that we're not even here getting ready for making a decision unless it's satisfied. So Luke's asking, are you comfortable in this, for that the application has at least met our standard findings?
I'll move on. Are you satisfied the application was received prior to our application deadline? That was referenced in the staff report. Does this application meet the definition of a wind energy system? See nodding heads. Do you agree that this permit should not become effective until all required permits are granted by the state and federal government, including the remaining applications and licenses referenced in the application? Those were referenced early on.
Is there anything about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife? I know that they mentioned that they had visited today.
Yes.
It did reference it in page 5 of the application as well as page 10 as far as what they were. Just wanted to check that fish and wildlife question though. So I'm not just flat shooting here. Here it is, yes. Federal state permits on page 5, coordination with United States Fish and Wildlife Services for federal coordination under the voluntary land-based wind siting guidelines and state permitting requirements. So that is referenced in there on page 5. Good question though. All right, I expect a little bit of discussion here. Did the application and testimony at this meeting allow us to adequately review how the applicant will satisfy requirements for site clearance, topsoil protection, compaction, livestock protection, fences, public roads, haul roads, turbine access roads, private roads, control of dust, soil erosion, check that, soil erosion and sediment control, electromagnetic interference, lighting, turbine spacing, footprint minimization, collector lines, feeder lines, decommissioning, tower height and appearance, flicker, and noise. And again, remember, flicker's not in the ordinance now, but it's something that's obviously on our minds.
As far as the townships are concerned, being on the board of the township, I would like at least 30 days notice before anything is going to happen, so that we also have time to look at the roads and
So
document.
a haul road agreement is required, and that the haul road needs to be the agreement needs to be executed at least 30 days prior to the building permit for a town. Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure it says that. You keep that?
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
And then also, which I'm sure they'll probably do, but they need to let the people whose roads they're going to probably block know a couple days in advance. And they're bringing trucks in and cement or whatever, where the road is gonna be.
Are you have a time frame, Bob, as far as that 7 days, that 2 weeks? What kind of
No, 2
notice?
days.
2 days?
is okay.
2 days, I'm sorry. And that notice again to the township or to adjoining landowners?
To the land, to the people who are using.
On the road.
On that.
So the adjoining landowners to whatever road is in question.
Yeah, at that particular time, but as they're moving along with
2
it.
days notice. Does anybody have questions or comments on what Commissioner Sparks has offered?
We'll try to, as some of those come up, yeah, I was just gonna address that. If chances are there are gonna be more added on, we'll try to catch them all as one here, unless someone says, I want that one, but not that one, something like that, okay? The next question, and before I ask it, before you answer, I do wanna clarify something too, because I didn't feel like we answered that. It was a question that was brought up earlier. Has the applicant demonstrated the ability to meet required setbacks for turbines from property lines, right-of-way, residences, businesses, government facilities, and other structures, uses, or features which would require a setback by ordinance? It should be noted, Mrs. Tuttle early on in discussion noted that her house does not have a setback measured in the map book that's shown on tab F1 is where that's located at. It is shown later on in the application. However, it's not shown on that page that was shown. It is shown in tab I in the appendix there that indicates where houses are. I do want to point out that is, it appears there's a house right across the road from Ms. Tuttle's as well. And with the scale of it, there's a house there on the street in the area she's showing in that appendix I. And then we also did hear testimony about the distance from that house to the nearest tower as well. So it is referenced. It is not referenced in that map. I just want to be perfectly clear as far as what is and what isn't in there, because I think she's right. The map she showed you, it wasn't shown on there. So the question remains: does, with what you've seen or heard today, and combining everything with the application, does that satisfy with regards to residences, right-of-way, businesses, government facilities, and others with regards to the ability to meet the setback requirements?
Is that just in this application, or is it in any?
Just this. On a different previous.
No, it's not.
Only for these 32 times.
if anything spurs a question in your mind, go ahead and double to it. Has the applicant submitted all information required to obtain a permit? I'll move on. Does the condition that the applicant will obtain a haul road agreement satisfy the requirement to have a haul road agreement? Meaning that they're going to agree that they have a haul road agreement on file. Of course, we'll have to add those conditions that you mentioned, Commissioner Sparks. By having the agreement to supply one as required by ordinance, does that meet our haul road agreement?
Try that again?
Initially, as soon as the permit's issued, there'd be a letter of assurance that's going to tie them to the conditions to meet the conditions of the ordinance. On the front end, they're not going to have the immediate, all of the i's dotted and t's crossed with each individual township, because one township might want one thing versus the other. So the agreement on the front end is that you don't have a permit if you don't have haul road agreements, is what it amounts to. In your review of written testimony submitted, the application or testimony provided tonight, are there any other issues brought up which relate to the zoning ordinance or land use plan that you feel like need to be addressed, that we haven't talked about or you feel like need to be addressed more?
I'm not convinced about the value of the property value. I don't know what to do about it, but I'm definitely not convinced that they don't have the lower property value for acreages.
That's Commissioner Sparks and Commissioner Platts that have those two same concerns. Any others that have that same concern?
Yes.
Okay, number 10 dovetails off of what was just said. Are there any other issues our ordinance and proposed conditions do not address that you feel should be addressed with this action? If you were to approve it, are there any other items or requirements that should be addressed that haven't been addressed at this point?
Going back to the residence, I think that residence I was talking about is in this, here, these towers here, putting here, that residence is right there.
Section 21.
Address is 46898, 158.
Should I say it again? The address is
46898, 158.
who the owner is.
Jacob Peterson. It's a
How-
house that they built last summer on the property when that was not people living in it before then. There was a farmstead there and stuff, but nobody lived on the site. Last summer he built house on that site and stuff.
Chris, do you know when that building